Money. The only language everybody speaks. It is the only language the powerful speak. So they told us a lie back in the day that what? What is the root of all evil? Why would they tell us that? Because it's the only way they can control us. You don't want your kid to get medical XYZ? Well, go pay for a private school. You can't? Okay, I'm going to do what I want with your kid. You don't want to work in this job any longer? Oh, you don't have any money? You're going to have to work in this job. This is how we push back. As we become so wealthy, we have a F you fund. We have a way to push back. So, you know how you guys talk about how the average millionaire has 7 to 12 income streams? Everybody's heard that before, right? I'm going to talk about that in a different way. A way that I wish somebody had told me about it earlier as to why it's so important that you diversify your revenue and your income streams and how to do it in a 21st century version. What's fascinating is most people who are worth 7 figures minus their house make money in lots of different ways. The more money you have, the more ways you make money typically. This is just math. But the problem is most people in the US don't have that. They have one. So how do we change that? The idea is simply this, is that we put the odds in your favor. And the way we put your odds in your favor is this idea of passive versus horizontal income. I think passive income is something sold to you on people online that want to tell you how to do, I don't know, drop shipping or something like that. I've never met passive income. If you guys have any for me, I'll be happy to take it. But horizontal income is a little bit different. It basically means your time isn't tied to that exact dollar. That instead, you have revenue streams that you can stack non-related to the 8-hour days or 10-hour days you want to work. But the way I think about this is different. And the reason why is, this is me back in the day. At this point, I was running a business in Chile. Something kind of crazy happened. We went from Chile to Argentina. In Argentina, I started selling these offshore funds. So a way for people in Argentina to invest in US dollar offshore. The business was going great. We were motoring. And then this woman called Cristina Fernandez became president. And within 1 month of her being in charge, our business became illegal. We got kicked out of the country. We had to give up our entirety of our business, and we've never worked in Argentina again. This is a business that had hundreds of millions of dollars in assets under management. The sad part was that I was a one-trick pony. I had put all this money into Argentina, into this one type of investment, and they had taken it away from me. And so I swore to never let that happen again. So I like to think of my income streams almost like the Bitcoiners think about Bitcoin. They don't like fiat currency because one person can control it and they can inflate your income. And I think about the same with my income sources. If you have decentralized revenue and income sources, you're harder to contain and you have more freedom. And so everything we want to do is to get more jobs, clients, etc., into decentralized income streams. And we'll break down how exactly that is. But the main idea is, I want you to think about your business as a human. And just like you want a rich human to have multiple income streams, that's typically how people talk about this, I want you to think about your business as a human that has multiple income streams to it. I want your business to become really hard to kill. Now, these guys. Anybody know who some of these guys are? Want to yell out a name? Carlos Slim. We got some Latinos in the house, huh? You guys know. He runs Mexico. That's the president of Mexico, shadow president. He's actually just the richest guy in Mexico, Carlos Slim. We've got the richest man in India to the far left. We've got one of the richest guys in the US, Charles Koch. And over there on the right is the richest man in the world. Think about this for a second. The richest man in the world, and one of you in here knows who he is. The people who control us, they get rich quietly, and they centralize power. But what's fascinating about these guys, he's a great example. Does that little reptilian man look like a fashion icon? Does it look like he comes up with the lines for Dior and Louis Vuitton? No, he doesn't, and yet he owns those. How? He bought them for pennies on the dollar. He used acquisitions in order to diversify now the world's biggest holding company, which owns those two entities. Because the truth those guys know is that it's actually far easier to buy profits than it is to grow them. And yet we sell this dream that startups are the way to go, and that we should start from zero, even though 90% of them fail. Most entrepreneurs only make $67,000 a year that start a startup, and the first 3 to 4 years are unprofitable. Why? Why would I just have one company as a centralized income stream when I could have 10? And what if I could use other people's money to do it in a creative way that takes out the middlemen, that takes out banks, that take out traditional systems? That's what we're going to talk about today. This is why we're here. We're here to do kind of what most people will never do. Do you know how many Americans own a business? What percentage? 3%. So we've got 3%, and then of the 3%, you guys are the top 10%, and then of the 3%, you guys are the top 0.4%.
Hey guys, if you've ever thought about buying a business, we've built what I think is the best acquisitions and business buying community and education curriculum in the world. If you've ever thought about wanting to buy or own a business, or if you want to add more businesses to the mix, it's called the Contrarian Community. And what this is the goal is we give you the 3 things that the best business buyers use: your own advisory team, your own investment committee, and a deal team. We get together each week to review deals live and beat up all the deals that you're currently looking at while you simultaneously learn the best way possible, which is called modeling, by seeing other people put together deals. This is how private equity buys businesses. This is how investment teams work. And we're stealing the methods from Wall Street and giving them to you. If this is interesting to you, go to click the link and you can actually talk to my team direct about if this is a fit or not. We can help guide you. The link is in the show description.
And I tell you this not to tell you anything you don't know or that you're special, but you kind of are. And there's not that many of us. There is a whole world of consumers, and there are very few builders. And that's a beautiful thing in some ways, but it's also a huge responsibility. And so I think we have to become not just owners, but empire builders. And that in a world where increasingly the few own everything, I think more of us should own more. And I think it's actually possible for the first time ever. Now, if you guys don't know me, I like to put my money where my mouth is. I've owned a bunch of businesses. We buy businesses. And I'm going to teach you the things that I learned at Goldman Sachs, at some of the biggest companies out there, and in private equity. So you guys want to learn some Warren Buffett level shit? You guys know this? The sage? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. So, this is fun. So if you guys like the slides, everybody always asks afterwards. You can take a screenshot of this and they'll send you the slides afterwards. They'll also send you some of the resources in here. Like there's a deal calculator if you guys want to analyze businesses. Okay, so that's thanks to your guys here. We'll make sure you guys get hooked up. So I've done this exact same process, and I want to show you what I've done so that you can question everything, including me. I think that's a good idea. We've used this process to buy a SaaS company, in fact, multiple, to buy online businesses. We've used this process to buy service-based businesses. We've used this process to buy laundromats. Anybody in here own a laundromat? Is it just me? Okay, just me, fine. And we've used this process to buy one of the biggest trades and service businesses in the country. Maybe you guys saw our acquisition of Resi Brands. The idea is in just about every single sector, we have now done this. And I think we're in a unique opportunity for you guys to steal my homework. I don't want BlackRock, Vanguard, or for that matter, me, to be the people that own everything. I think more of us should touch our local communities. Anybody been in a Starbucks lately? How is that place, huh? They the little barista's mad at you. You know, she's angry you came in. You can't call her she, because who knows? You know, you don't know the owner of the place. The CEO's never been in the building ever. And you compare that to a local coffee shop. So different. And yet it's happening to our country all around us. I think the interesting part is, I'm sure you feel it, we're in a recession right now. But I think there's a huge opportunity to buy things on sale when the market's tough. And why do I know that? It's because we have this huge wealth transfer, like kind of hanging over our heads. I've talked about this a lot. The numbers are somewhere between $5 and $10 trillion worth of businesses are going to be transferred from baby boomer generation to our generation. Here's the problem. Do you guys know the average percent that an owner has of their net worth in their business? 90%. 90% of a business owner's wealth is in their business. Well, what does that mean to that $5 trillion? Is that sitting in bank accounts? No. That is wrapped up in businesses. And if those businesses don't get sold or transferred, what happens? Or BlackRock buys them all, and we're stuck in a world of Starbucks and angry baristas. And I just like coffee too much for that, so I don't want that to happen. And what we're seeing happen, though, is massive retirement by baby boomers who own small businesses. They had COVID happen, and they were like, God, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. And we're going to see this more and more. And so I think the opportunity for you guys today is to buy these small businesses. And I'm going to tell you how I think we can do it, but I want to get into the why real quick. I think the world kind of needs us to go small. This is Frisco, basically. It's not actually Frisco, but this image might as well be. It's big, huge corporations, no local businesses, no local signage. And what's fascinating is we're seeing this accelerate across industry. In fact, we did a study where 25% of every single sector in the US economy and 90% of subsectors, the top 10 companies own 25% of the industry. Think about that for a second. So the big guys are owning everything, and this is our chance to push back. Now, what's going to happen when the recession gets a little bit more aggressive? Well, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, right? I think Mark Twain said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Look what happened to businesses that closed during COVID. 60% of them closed and never reopened, ever again. That will be the same thing that happens in the next recessionary period. And so for you all who already own a business, that should sound like a sale. The second that you have people closing down shop and spending on average $100,000 to close a small business is the second that you have an opportunity to buy that bad boy. And I want to stick this in your head because this statistic lives in my mind rent-free. Most small business owners can't afford more than 30 days of no cash flow. They don't have enough cash to sustain it. And I think you can be their legacy aspect for this. You can be the person that takes over that small business. So if you want to grow your business, there's lots of ways to do it. I'm sure they've talked to you about it today. But I actually am pretty lazy and not that smart. And so I want to steal other people's homework as much as possible. I think one of the easiest ways to steal other people's homework is to literally buy their business and all of their processes inside of it. So the idea is, let's go through live how we could take one little business. This is one of the first businesses I bought, from $67,000 in profit all the way to $1 million. So you guys can kind of see the process live. And then this is called the Socratic method. So it's a case study and you can apply it to your business. What I'd like you to think about while you're listening to this is, if I didn't have a business, but I was to start or buy one, how could I implement this? In my current business today, where could I buy my profits and revenue as opposed to build them? That's what I want you to think about. So let's go through this. You guys ready for some Jeff Bezos level shit? Not this Jeff Bezos. I'm talking this motherfucker. You know what I'm talking about? This is how you know you're a billionaire. You turn in from the former guy to this. All right, let's start with this example. So this is one of my first laundromats that I bought. $67,000 a year profit, $100K price, which a lot of people are like, oh my God, what a good deal. I'm like, well, the catch is you got to work in a laundromat for $67K a year. So it's like not the greatest deal of all time. How did I do the deal? Well, I put somewhere between 0 and 15% down for the business. I use seller financing for the business, and I finance down payment with investors. And I talked to you about this process as opposed to what I really did in this business is I paid the full $100K because I had the cash, but I'm smarter now, so I wouldn't do that again. So we buy a laundromat. We use seller financing on top of it. We've acquired one income stream, right? 67K. What do we do next? We buy our next income stream. How? Well, in this case, we added vending machines to it. So we buy a series of vending machines. We push them within a 1 mile radius of the location, and we add another revenue stream to the business. What does that get us? Well, that gets us almost to $117,000 in revenue. How many new clients have we had to get by getting to 117K? Well, 0. We just sell more things to our current customers. Okay, I like that. What's step 3? Well, how many of you guys have competitors? Everybody? Your competitors now are actually not somebody you compete against, you buy them. How do you do that? Well, in this case, this was a guy by the name of Bob, name changed to protect the innocent. But Bob was in the business for a long time, 20 years, right? He was ready to roll. He hadn't optimized the business, but the business was bigger than mine. He was in Austin, so he was like, all those weirdos from California are coming in, we want out. And I said, okay, Bob, what if we bought your business? We buy the business, $417,000 in profit. Now we have our third income stream. Next, what do? Well, we realized that we were operating at less capacity than we could. We had more space, but I didn't want to go out and buy machines for the laundromat because machines are kind of expensive, so I didn't want to buy them outright. I was like, wait a second. Could I go into laundromats that are kind of struggling, maybe going to go out of business? Could I do an asset sale? So I could use other people's money in order to buy the machines, insert them, and increase the total amount of customers I could serve in my location, which is exactly what we did. So now we're at income stream number 4. Then we do what's called a satellite acquisition. So here I'm like, all right, the average user of a laundromat, I don't know, maybe they're gonna spend 10, 15 bucks a month with me if they're a good client. How could I double, triple, or how could I 50x that? Well, what if I bought, in this case, a van delivery fleet? So I can provide wash and fold service and I can deliver more higher end customers. And so we did. This gets us to $717,000 in income. Same business. Now I go, God, what are the biggest expenses in my business right now? Like what on my P&L? You guys like that? You like that soap? People say laundromats aren't sexy. They've never really been in my laundromats. Okay, I look at my costs and I realize that I would like to turn some liabilities into assets. I'm like, God, we spend so much money on soap. So I'm like, wait a second. What if we create our own soap brand, or what if we buy our own soap brand and then we sell it to other people? Great. Income stream number 6. And then finally, also, this is a real book, which kills me that somebody would put that on the cover of their book. I don't know. Hopefully he's not here in the crowd, but that's something else. So then I realized our really biggest cost is actually our lease. It's expensive for us to be in this location. What if I acquired the real estate that that my business works out of right now? And then on top of it, man, that'd be great for my taxes, which we were talking about previously, right? So I could actually decrease my tax bill. I could increase my income. I could even clean up the area a little bit, raise prices for other people. And now I have my 7th income stream. We have one business. We've acquired no new customers. We've grown the business 0 except through acquisition. This is how the really rich work. They are lazy. They use other people's money. And they tell you that you can't. And I think we've proven again and again that you actually can. And let me tell you what I mean by this. At first I was like, well, maybe I just got lucky. Am I the only one that could do this? So we created a community for people that buy small businesses. And I was like, let's see how this goes. And then it turns out our community has bought $266 million in small businesses since we started tracking this about 1.5 years ago. These are teachers. These are firefighters. These are some finance people, software engineers. But all this slide is to show you that it's totally feasible for average people. Is it easy? No. Everybody in here that runs a small business, the only thing I know about you for certain, you're a little bit of a masochist, right? You hate yourself a little bit sometimes. You're a sucker for punishment, and for some reason, you're probably totally fucking unemployable. Also, right? Just me? Am I just talking to myself up here? Okay. So yes, it is hard. But I don't think it's nearly as hard as they make us think. And the reason I know that is because I've done it in all these industries. We've got business after business we've bought a part of or all of. And if I can do this, I'm pretty damn sure you guys can too. So what I will say is, it's not as hard as they told us, and I want you to just ruminate on this for a second. I really want you to let this hit. This is what your competition is. This is a real article, by the way. Gen Z is so allergic to work that they're using tarot cards to invest in the stock market as opposed to do what you guys do. This is what you're competing against. And I think every time you get pissed because you see some idiot on the internet talking about some nonsense, I just want you to picture this and go, thanks, guys. Thanks. Because when everybody else gets weak and soft, that means that those of us that like a little pain are going to have way more profit. And I remind this to my husband often because he really loses it watching people on the internet. Now, about this time, people go to me, okay, Cody, this all sounds good, but didn't you have millions or tens of millions to invest in businesses? And sometimes that was true. Now that I have some money, I like to use money where I can instead of time. But you don't actually have to have cash like this poor, sad, pathetic fuck. What a story, huh? Sam Bankman-Fried. Woo. You can buy a business with three things. You can bring the money, you can bring the experience, or you can bring the sweat. And so you really got no excuse. There's three ways I like to buy small businesses. Using the SBA, which is the Small Business Association. They provide loans with some government incentives that banks can utilize, seller financing, where the owner of the business will sell you the business using future profits. And then also other people's money, meaning you get investors to help you fund the deal. Now, this is technical. Everybody okay with an Excel spreadsheet? I know it's late in the day. All right. Here's what we're looking at. I want you to look at this so you can see it behind me. Okay, so why would anybody sell you a business using seller financing? This is what usually people say to me. Like, there's no way. Why would they do that? Are they idiots or are you taking advantage? Let me show you why. Purchase price of a business, $1 million, right? This is what the seller wants. Here's the story. We catch an owner on a bad day. We don't take advantage of them. We actually help them help themselves. How? They want $1 million for their business. And I say, well, here's the problem, which is usually the situation. Business owners are terrible at taxes, QuickBooks, financials overall, especially baby boomer business owners. They've been doing it a long time. So I say, the problem is your business is only worth $750,000 to the bank. The interest rate that they're going to give me is going to mean I pay somewhere around, let's say, $80,000 a year for the loan, which means that I can pay you $750,000, but I actually pay more than that for the business overall. Or if you finance the business for me, Mr. Business Owner, I can buy the business for $1.15 million. So I can give you a premium for your business. You actually give me a smaller percentage interest rate. And look at what the final amount is, because I'm paying you interest as an annuity year over year throughout the loan instead of the bank. Do you want to make more money if you sell your business? Give me a yes. Do you want to also get paid an interest rate? Yes, of course you do. Okay, great. So, Mr. Owner, you might sell your business to me because I'm going to pay more for it. Makes sense. How about, do you want to pay the IRS less? Yes, of course we do. We're in Texas. That's the only reason we live here, right? Freedom, less taxes. How about if you pay a small business owner up front with an SBA loan, you got to pay all the taxes up front. If you pay them with a seller financing, you can structure this thing 6 ways from sideways. You can structure the payments out over time, which means that they can become long-term capital gains. You could do it as distributions, which means that they'd be at one of the lowest tax rates out there. You could do it as distributions to their LLC, which means that they could do write-offs against the amount that you pay them. You can't do that if you do a one-time big chunk payout. So, Mr. Small Business Owner, do you want to make more money up front, and do you want to pay less in taxes? Okay, how about this? Do you want to sell it faster? Or do you want to sit in just the pain of your small business for 120 days, which is the average time that a small business loan takes? Or if we do seller financing, I don't know if we can move in a week. That's pretty fast. We've done it before, but that's fast. But certainly within 30 days. Would you like to sell your business for more, pay the IRS less, and move faster? Yes, of course you would. And that is why seller financing works. So how do we find deals is the next question that I get. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I have an Uncle Eb who's since passed away. And he's one of the main reasons I even started thinking about talking about this on the internet, because I got so mad. And I think oftentimes our business comes from our biggest pain. Uncle Eb, his family came from sharecroppers in Arkansas. He grew up with like 12 brothers and sisters. Only 8 of them survived. He was a hard motherfucker. And he started this business called Eb Homes Plumbing in Phoenix, Arizona. He ran it for years. Finally, later on in life, he gets the phone call with the 6-letter word none of us want to hear. Cancer. And so what does he do? His business does millions of dollars a year in revenue, millions of dollars a year in profit. What do you think he does? Sells it, right? Wrong. He shuts it down. Why? He had no idea that there existed this option. Like most small business owners, if there are 11 small businesses for sale on a street, just picture like houses, 1 in 11 will sell in any 1 year period. He was like, I don't have a lot of time left. I don't want to spend the next year trying to get a deal done. I want to spend it with my family. And so because you guys and I didn't know how to buy small businesses, this business died. And what popped up instead? A big corporation. Takes all his clients for $0. His family gets nothing for it, and it costs them money to shut it down. This happens all around us. So I think it is our moral imperative to figure out how do we buy them instead. So if you're going, where do I find these businesses to buy? It's the businesses you work in, pay right now, that you compete with, and that you get paid by. It's literally everything that you make money on your P&L from, everything that you spend money on your P&L from, everything on your credit card statement, everything in your Venmo. Those are the businesses you want to buy, and they're all around you and you already know them. Now there's 2 specific ways that I buy businesses that I want to talk to you about really quick. I call the first the sows method. I want it to be stale, old, weak, and simple. Business is hard, right? Do we need to make it harder by having intellectual property rights across multiple continents? Do we need to do biotechnology and things that we can't explain to our grandmother? Absolutely not. We buy businesses that haven't changed a lot, that have been around more than 5 years, that have weak competitors, and that are simple business models. That's what a sow's business is. Here's a quick example. Approachment. Stale revenue, hadn't grown in 3 years. 12 years old. Business owner hadn't marketed it. It was like an outsourced chat group. So basically we layer it over all of our small businesses so immediately respond to leads. Because what's the number one reason why somebody hires one small business over another? You're the first to respond. That is how fucking low the floor is in small business. Everybody's like, I want more leads. I'm like, how fast do you respond to the ones you get? Because the fastest to respond is the fastest to close. That is the simplest way to grow your business. So I go, okay, this is a good business. Let's buy it. So I bought the business for $75K, integrated it into our businesses. Now an operator runs it. I'm trying to make it $1 million a year business. We'll see if we can do it. That is a sow's business. The point is, you want to buy a boring business, so been around for 17 years. You want to do it in a recession-resistant sector, so if the economy goes to hell, I still am going to call a plumber when I need one. You want to raise prices. Did you raise prices in your business when you took it over? Great. And then you want to add tech to it. BRRT. That's the process. A lot of people fancy this up, but this is the straightforward first way to steal the homework from people who have run private equity companies for decades. They use big words because they don't want us to realize private equity ain't that hard. If those guys were good, they'd start businesses. The thing that they're best at is financial arbitrage, and we can steal their homework on it. Here is the process, 10 steps to buy a business. It starts with what you guys already know today. Oh, wait a second. It's possible to buy a business. Then we go to deal clarity, which is what's the right business for me? Then we go to origination. How do I find a business to buy? Then we go to outreach. How do I talk to a seller so they sell their small business to me? Then we go to evaluation. How do I determine what the business is worth one way or the other? Then we go to offer and negotiation. How do I talk to them so that I get the best deal? Then we go to due diligence. How do I make sure they're not lying to me? How about financing? How do we get money? We close the deal, and now, congratulations, you own a small business. How do we run the first 90 days? I think a lot of people make this seem more complex than it needs to be. There's 5 steps for you to be better-looking younger versions of Warren Buffett, and these are them. You want to figure out, like Warren does, how do you use other people's money to do deals? Who's the team that you need to get it done? Let me give you a secret. It's 3 people. Who do you think are on your deal team when you want to buy a small business? Accountant? Who else? Attorney? Your subject matter expert. So one way that a lot of people go wrong in buying businesses is they go, this plumber's been doing this for 20 years. Guy had no idea about tech. He's not as classy as this guy in front. He says he's shitty at this, he's shitty at that. And then they go and they try to run a plumbing company, and what do you think happens? Yeah, they're like, oh, they didn't teach me this at McKinsey. This isn't how search works. And so what we need to make sure we have is a human who's actually done this before. The cool part about it is they're on Reddit. They're all over the internet. You can pay them $100, $200, and people will help you in an industry that most people don't talk about. So that's your deal team. Then we got to find operators, right? Somebody to run the thing. Then we narrow down your deal criteria so you're not looking for everything. Everything is hard to find. And then finally, what do you do once you buy the bad boy? How do you become an owner? You have people that make sure that people are doing things they say they're going to do. That is the process. I thought I'd kind of close out here with a couple little stories. So anybody know who this guy is? This is Bill Perkins. He's become a mentor of mine. He wrote the book called Die with Zero. Now, Bill's a brilliant guy. He's a former hedge fund manager, current hedge fund manager. He's fascinating because I was walking along his giant mansion in Austin, and we're walking along the lake together. And do you guys ever go home to tell your spouse something you're really excited about? And you're like, guess what? I'm going to do this, and this is going to happen, and then we're going to do this. And what does your spouse do? They just shit all over it, right? They're just like, that idea is awful, terrible. My husband sometimes calls me Captain No, so, I feel it. So anyway, so I'm talking to Bill, and I'm like, this is what we're going to build. It's going to be amazing. And Bill looks at me, and he goes, do you think that you've been around small business for so long that small has infected your thinking? Yikes. Ouch. Ouch. And yet, as I sat there with him, I realized he'd given me the biggest gift imaginable. People will tell you all day why you can't, why you won't, why it's not going to work. How many people will look at you and say, I think you're capable of more. I think you got one more rep in you. I think you're lifting too light. People don't do that in life, especially in this society. They instead go, yes, queen, you look great. You're like, you don't. We should wear a new dress. It's not okay. He gave me one of the biggest gifts imaginable. And here, I see so many of you are here with your partners, friends, wives, husbands. I think that is the job of the people that we choose to do life with. It's not to just be there through thick and thin. It's to make sure that when we stand before God at the end of our days, we can say, I used everything you gave me. I don't have one drop left. I left it all in the field. And I want you to do that for your human that you're here with today, and I want them to do it back for you. And that's what Bill did for me. And I think that's what it takes in this world today. Because I do think that we should buy when there's blood in the streets, and there is about to be. I told you about Argentina, money markets, Brazil, and cannabis. What else do those have in common? In every one of those markets, the government changed regulations and they ruined my business. I had a business in Argentina, business folded. I had a business in money markets, changed one regulation, made the company unprofitable. I had a business in Brazil. The 51% owner, because you have to have that locally there, took over the small business through new regulation, was allowed to steal the entire asset. And in cannabis, they were supposed to unenact something called 280E. They didn't, and so it was never a profitable entity. My point here is this, that I think a lot of times business owners do not realize something. You are fighting. You are fighters. And the way we fight against an asymmetric risk, which means that is something that can crush your business, is by making money. A lot of people don't realize that your only job as a CEO is this, that you have one job as a CEO, and this is what I tell all my teams. I am here to protect our ability to persevere. I'm here to make sure we survive. That's it. Everything else doesn't matter. And there is an asymmetric risk around every corner of capitalism today. And that is us not leaning in to a little bit more than just profits. Leaning in a little bit more to maybe the political sphere that we don't want to. Because I do think this, for sure, that no matter who the president is, one side or the other, nobody's coming to save us. Even if your person gets elected, they're not coming to save us. Even if the other person gets elected, they're not coming to save us. And so what does that mean? That means it's up to you and I. I feel pretty good about it because I've been around this country and I have seen the builders, and they do not quite realize who they're with yet. And I think there's a lot of humans just like you starting to wake up a little bit and starting to say, you will not impact my ability to earn, because my ability to earn is my ultimate freedom. I watched this thing the other day about voting and how kind of beautiful it is in a way. Because you can have $1 billion or you can have no dollars, but you get the same thing, right? You get one vote in this country, which is kind of cool. And I think as business owners, we realize that we are not on a level playing field. That our little vote to a world that's better than what we grew up in, that hopefully we get to transfer to our kids, to the next generation, depends on the actions that you take today. I want you guys to do something for me. My homework for you guys today is this. I want you guys to go out and buy some businesses, okay? And when you buy the business, I want you to tell me, and then I want you to do something that the guys at Starbucks never are gonna do. And that is, I want you to help one other human get equity. Just one. I want you to help your CEO that you input, your COO that you input. I want you to help one other human get skin in the game. Because guess what people do who have skin in the game? You don't burn down the house you built, do you? You keep building it. And so as much as we wanna lock down, we wanna not help our competitors, we know that the best part of business is employees and the worst part of business is employees. We know that. And yet, if we become some of the few who actually help others elevate to equity, our world looks completely different. A nation of owners is impossible to contain because you can't tell unemployable owners what to do. Remember when they called people who liked one candidate or another deplorables? You guys remember that? I kind of think that we should label ourselves unemployables. Unemployables who are unwilling to listen to the status quo. And we should push back with our profits. And I think if we do that, we change this country, we make a ton of money, and we don't have to be told what to do again. You guys with me? Any nation where they do not want you to own anything, where they want you to be on the street corner asking for permission, where they want to take away your hard-earned dollars and have little Moscows by the Pacific everywhere, I want you guys to be owners.
Wonder why so many young people don't trust the system? It's because this is America 2.0, where we brainwash kids for 8 hours a day until they're 18, tell them they have to go to college and go 100K in debt or they'll never succeed, make student loan debt unforgivable, more expensive yearly, and yet their parents' tax dollars go to those same schools, make it illegal to have unpaid internships where you actually learn rather than just theorize, pressure the top performers to go into two of the most uncreative jobs out there, Wall Street and consulting, or idealize startups that will require sleeping on floors. Rack up massive debt from VC, so 1 out of 10 of them end up on the cover of Fortune. Then get mad at these young people for not working hard enough, for quiet quitting when they can't afford houses. They hate their jobs and their loans keep stacking. And if that doesn't keep their heads down, then send them to war in a foreign land. We have to fix America 2.0. This is why kids don't want to keep playing the game. Let's fix this. This is Main Street Millionaire, out now. Hey crew, this is so cool. The podcast is growing like crazy, and it's only actually because of one thing, you. I don't know if you know this, but the only way the Big Deal Pod grows is when you share it with somebody else. We don't do ads, we don't do pay for play, we don't go on other people's podcasts and talk about it. So if you think there was something helpful here, if we made you money, we made you think about your business or life differently, the most beautiful thing you can do for me is share it. And the most beautiful thing you can do for someone that you care about is to share it with them, help them grow alongside you. So please share the pod. That's how we grow. And also tag me on anything you share. I love resharing other builders across Instagram, Twitter, and all other platforms. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're super important to me.
Coaches are important. I still have coaches. You have to believe in the end of your story.
This week's episode is a totally different format. It is going to be multiple billionaire guests that I'm lucky enough to now call friends or have had on the podcast, and we are going to have bite-sized, best-in-class information from each one of them. If you've ever wondered, how do billionaires make all their money? What secrets could I learn from them? Can I get a billionaire mentor? And what does it take to make that crazy level of cash? How do you explain that at a very simplistic level? First principles thinking.
You say, what are our fundamental assumptions? What are we doing here?
Running my businesses like a coach would run a team, I became a lot more effective.
Where should a young builder start today?
You serve.
Would you tell them to go take active risk?
Well, first of all, the younger you are, the easier it is to take risks and use that to your advantage.
How do you know if you're moving fast enough on the decisions you want to make in life?
What happened if you thought about that idea 3 years ago? What if you executed on that, or where would you be now?
Welcome back to the Big Deal podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez. This week is for you. Only the most tactical, most specific stories so that you can learn from these billionaires too, and you can steal my billionaire mentors. Next week, back to regularly scheduled programming with the fastest growing AI startup CEO out there. I'm going to save who it is. You guys could try to guess. But that episode is also amazing. And it turns out it's the next 2 weeks is only Billy's. So we're going to make a lot of money these next 2 weeks on the Big Deal podcast. Let's get into it.
Coaches are important. I still have coaches. I have a swim coach.
You had a Navy SEAL
a memory
live with
coach.
you.
Because I wanted to get better at memorizing names. I wasn't great when I met people at remembering their names. So I brought a coach in to help me with that. I've had sales coaches. I've had coaches in so many areas of my life because I'm not great at everything. I want to go to people that are amazing at what they do. I live with Goggins. I lived on a monastery to get better at my spirituality. Investing in yourself to get better is so important. If you're working at an organization, two things. One, I think you should make yourself irreplaceable. That's really important. Then you have the leverage. You can't even fire me. I know everybody, every customer. I'm unfireable. Now you have some leverage, which I think is really important. And you should learn, network, and sponge as much, absorb, especially when you're young, as much as you can. Do everything. Learn everything. Gandhi said it best. He said, learn like you'll live forever, live like you'll die tomorrow. Oof. So you want to learn and keep getting better, in as many things as you can.
Do you have a particular way that you lead people? What do you think it is? Is it either you select these people who are going to be high performers, and so you have a selection bias, or do you have a particular leadership style that you think enables other people to become something bigger?
I think that you have to put confidence in there are so many better. I honestly, Cody, I'm back of the pack entrepreneur. I really am. There's so many amazing entrepreneurs. I don't even put myself, that's not my strong suit. It's not.
Interesting.
It's not. I've had wins. I've had great partners. I've had good ideas, right time, right place. A lot of things happened. But there's so many. I still go to so many entrepreneurs for advice. But I am good at giving people confidence and belief. And that's really important because if you have to believe in the end of your story.
I think people have beat up this idea quite a bit, but first principles thinking, obviously categorized or created by Peter Thiel, but then you talk about a lot to this day, this idea of getting back to base level. How do you explain that at a very simplistic level, first principles thinking?
Yeah, and Bridgewater, by the way, was all about this as well, which is a very interesting hedge fund, right? It's the biggest hedge fund in the world. But it's really important. You've seen this in lots of areas where you go back and you say, what are our fundamental assumptions? What are we doing here? Why? What is our firm the best at? Why is there an opportunity here? What are we gonna, what's our core capabilities, right? These are really philosophical questions as well as how do you break down the frameworks for who you are? And then say, okay, given these are our core capabilities, what are the juxtaposed areas, what are the areas next to it that we can go into that are similar? And it's a really good exercise to keep coming back to because it reminds you of things. This is why building a deck is really good for an entrepreneur, even if it's a small business, is you want to put together, here's 10 pages on who I am, what I'm doing, what the goals are, why it's going to be successful. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs say, oh, well, I'm just so smart and fast, and why would I do this stupid thing that's for stupid people? It's not for me. And it's it's for everyone, because everyone needs to get back to the core of like exactly like what and why and who and how. And sometimes those principles you'll notice have actually changed in a way. Maybe you intuitively realize one of them's changed, but you don't really find it until you go back and actually write it down. So it's just such a helpful thing. And, as a founder, I really admire the founders, not just of companies, but, the founders of America as well. And the founders of America were really clear about their principles.
Yeah.
And we're very, very lucky about that. There's all sorts of debates. There's all sorts of writings from that time. I grew up reading something called the London Magazine, which is the founders of America and the people, writing things in Parliament and everything would write it and argue back and forth even. So you have all these primary sources of what was going on. And it was the Enlightenment had kind of just happened over the last 100 years. And it was really a time where people were really focused on principles in society and what's correct. And so it was a great intellectual breeding ground for founding something like America. But I find founders in general who are the best are similar to the American founders, like really debate these things and really come back to them. And that it kind of refreshes and renews what you're doing.
Yeah, it also seems like you have to repeat yourself very, very often as a founder. And so
you do, because you need to make sure people understand the vision of what's going on. I remember early on at Palantir, we'd walk around and talk to a bunch of the engineers helping me recruit, and what's the mission to you in your words? Why are you excited about it in your words? When you're talking to your smartest friends and we're going to go over to Stanford or MIT or wherever else we're going to go and recruit, like tell me as if I'm one of them. Let's talk about it, let's practice. And it's helpful. You got to do that.
I think it comes from really how I was raised. I mean, on a farm, you are raised in that situation. You don't have any guarantees and you figure it out and you work hard until it's done. And I think just that tenacity really saw me through a lot. And, certainly building a career from Wall Street now into the cabinet, from rural America, I think that just really taught me to dig in, keep going, keep learning, and keep the curiosity about how things work and keep asking questions and never accept the first no.
Yeah, you seem like when we were talking kind of behind the scenes, you're like, I like it. I want to be in there. I want to be like making a difference. And I was like, wasn't it scary to run for Senate? That sounds horrifying. You were like, no, like put me in, coach. So you got a little of that inner psychopath. I'm into that.
Yeah. Well.
What about, so you owned an MBA, a WNBA team, which seems incredibly hard in just every aspect, not as much funding, lower ticket sales, and then there was inner turmoil in the WNBA. What was the hardest moment for you running that business?
Well, I think the biggest decision came when my business partner and I, we were 50-50 owners, but before that, we were minority owners. And there came a point where the majority owner decided to sell. And we had to look at each other and say, do we want to step up and be 50-50 owners? And I was running a big part of our publicly traded company at the time. And I had to have confidence in the team that we brought on to really run that business day to day. And also the funding. I mean, it was, it's not an inexpensive endeavor to sink money into that every single year.
Was it public how much that was?
No, but it's a couple million. And it was, we'd hoped to be able to get it to break even. But to the point, back then, the bigger decision was to say, is this a go or no go? And I believe that when life opens a door for you, and to walk through it, and that life had opened a door for me as a professional sports team owner, and walking away at that time didn't seem like a good option. And I'm really glad we walked through it. We owned the team for a decade. And it was very grassroots. In fact, I was working with a reporter one time and pitching a story. I mean, I was, making sure that we got the visibility. I had this vision because of what I'd seen living in Chicago during the Bulls run in the 90s. And I thought, my goodness, I see what sports do for a community. They really bring it together. And I think Atlanta could be a great sports town. And so we invested on that basis to not have this as a hobby, but to make this a business and a great community contribution. And we were so glad that we walked through that door and did that for a decade for our fans, for our community, to elevate the sport. And it turned out to be such a good, I learned so much being a sports team owner that applied to business. Because in business, sometimes you can kick the can on a problem. In sports, you can't do that.
Why? Everybody's just yelling at you all the time?
Well, because in sports, the scoreboard shows the results every single day. The ticket sales show the results every single day. The coaching shows the results. And so you have to make those decisions game time. And so I started doing that in business, running my businesses like a coach would run a team. And I became a lot more effective, decisive, and not afraid about what decisions were around the next corner. It just really emboldened me to make those decisions and keep going.
Where should a young builder start today?
Well, I mean, the first thing that, and I just talked to our team about it this morning in a staff meeting, reminding them yet again, one of our core values here is, if you help enough people, you don't have to worry about money. So too many times when we start something, we are enamored with our own idea, our own ability, and the idea is the thing rather than the customer. And what I want to do is I want the person that is not inside the building to be blessed, to be changed, to be served, to have their mind blown. The people inside the building all get their mind blown? Not so much. Not so much. You know, that doesn't do anything. What happens is when all those people out there all over the world, I get the opportunity to help one of them with their budget. I get the opportunity to help one of them with their marriage. I get to help one of them with their spiritual walk. I get to help one of them with their small business. When they, you know, and so we don't build anything for us. We build everything for them. And when you first start, that's not natural. That's paradoxical, because you're kind of into what you're doing, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of good at this, and this is kind of cool. And it was for me anyway. And so when I did the first cassette tapes or VHS tapes, you know, I was like, wow, look at that guy. He's funny and he's good. And it kind of started coming to me, no one cares except your mama and your wife.
And they also don't.
They don't care that much. You know, so, you know, it's like, but that, I think that's a thing. You serve. And if you can find a way to make other people's life better and let them be the hero in the story, as my friend Donald Miller says. Don't you have to be the hero? You can be the guide. And, you know, that kind of stuff, it just makes you have a good quality life, and you've got a good philosophical, spiritual underpinning to your business then that you can, okay, we're about service. We're about service. And when you interact with an organization, a business that is about themselves, you feel the take rather than the give. And when you interact with a company that is all about service, you come away with your mind blown, because they're fairly rare.
How did you get comfortable with risk, or how do you think about risk, especially for young people who maybe haven't had a chance to take it yet? And would you tell them to go take active risk?
Well, first of all, the younger you are, the easier it is to take risk, right? And use that to your advantage. I started my first company when I was 17. And I was in college I was just entering college. And I think I had this mindset that like, okay, like I have this thing, college, right? And like I could do that well. And as long as I'm doing that well, my parents will be okay. So let me go take as much risk as I can take outside of school. And let me go try different things. And I didn't have kids. I didn't have to, I was working and paying some of my own bills at the time, but I had, my parents were supporting me. And I used that as an excuse to take more risk. And I think the older you get, the harder it is to take risk. And risk is like a muscle, right? It's like the younger you try new things, and the earlier you sort of train your mindset to know that like I'm going to do something, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, that's still okay too, because I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to leverage that into the next thing.
How do you think about speed and moving fast? And how do you know if you're moving fast enough on the decisions you want to make in life?
Well, first I want to say, not a dream crusher. I just want to hold you accountable to your best self, right? Like you definitely had all the ingredients as somebody I would want to bet on. And your dreams, your ideas were much bigger than that. You weren't thinking bigger. And I told you at the time, I said, the money is easy. It's having an idea that you can execute on. There's tons of money. There's tons of rich guys that don't want to work. They just want to invest in somebody and make a good return. The question is, how do we find these executors? And when we find them, They dump cash into them and they go golfing or flying or doing whatever they want to do. And so I wanted you to think big because it wouldn't be hard for you to raise money, right? Like after you went around, you were like trying to cram me down because these other guys want to come in and this guy want to come in. I'm like, no, that guy can't get in, right?
That should happen.
What happened if you thought about that idea 3 years ago? What if you executed on that, a little bit faster? What if you, thought a little bit bigger and moved a little bit faster? Where would you be now? How big would this conference be? How many people would be knocking down your door to figure out how you did it? And so, we're human beings, we're not institutions, we don't live that long. And there's periods in our life, and I just think that life in itself is urgent and important, and your dreams are important. And that advantage of action, speed implies action. You're not just speed running around in a circle, you're moving towards your dreams. And so it's almost taking yourself serious and your dreams seriously by executing. What else should you be doing, right, according to your values? And so I think it's very important. And it's, my willingness to take risk and my ability or my willingness to move quickly towards my goals are the only advantages I have.
I was just looking, and it looks like more than 50% of you are not subscribed to the Big Deal podcast. When you subscribe, first of all, it means we get to bring you bigger and better guests. It's also the #1 way you can support this podcast. If you liked it today, subscribe on whatever channel that you're listening to. And I want to tell you something firsthand. You become whatever you allow into your attention span. And what I hope you feel from us every single day is that I value your attention and your time more than anything else. I promise to only bring you things that are going to make you more money. They're going to make you more motivated to make your life better. So give me a little solid here. Subscribe to the channel. This is how we grow. Also leave me a review on what you want better and who you want on. I promise you will do it. Hey, if you're a business owner right now and you like the things you were hearing on this podcast, I have something that I haven't talked about publicly before that's just for you. It's called our SMB Boardroom. This is for small business owners who want to grow. It is for business owners who are on their way to making at least 7 figures a year. If this is you, hit the link down below, talk to our team. This is the place that can be your late night emergency call for the things that go bump in the night in your business. If right now you feel like you're plateauing or you feel like you don't know how to handle your growth, we got you. So click the link below, SMB Boardroom. We just built it for you builders. Kind of obsessed with it. And I think if you are a builder, there's no place you're going to want to be except here. Hey guys, if you've ever thought about buying a business, we've built what I think is the best acquisitions and business buying community and education curriculum in the world. If you've ever thought about wanting to buy or own a business, or if you want to add more businesses to the mix, it's called the Contrarian Community. And what this is the goal is we give you the 3 things that the best business buyers use: your own advisory team, your own investment committee, and a deal team. We get together each week to review deals live and beat up all the deals that you're currently looking at while you simultaneously learn the best way possible, which is called modeling, by seeing other people put together deals. This is how private equity buys businesses. This is how investment teams work. And we're stealing the methods from Wall Street and giving them to you. If this is interesting to you, go to click the link and you can actually talk to my team direct about if this is a fit or not. We can help guide you. The link is in the show description.
You're not rich. You will go broke trying to build a perception for yourself so that other people think that you're doing a lot better than you actually are.
You don't need a 6-figure salary to become rich. You can change your financial life in 6 months. See, Vivian too rewired her brain on Wall Street. Then she built her reputation by calling BS on feel-good money rules and replaced them with data-backed finance systems she learned. I do believe you can think your way to rich in many ways if you know where to look. And today, we'll see if you agree with me by the end of this episode. What other frameworks do you have about saving, investing, or making money that everybody needs to know?
I like to help people calculate their fuck you number. Close your eyes for a second and imagine your perfect year. How much would that 1 year cost you? And at that point, you could tell your boss, fuck you, and quit. Can I also say something that's probably a little controversial?
Yes, please.
So
I think you and I have the same ideas on lattes. So you famously say a $5 latte will not make you broke. What are the habits that secretly keep people broke?
I think it's the idea of just grossly living beyond your means and finding new and creative ways to do it. Let's give an example. Buy now, pay later. Okay? At first, buy now, pay later was actually an incredible service because it provided essentially a line of credit to those who couldn't necessarily get a credit card, who couldn't get a traditional loan. And this is when you were buying a refrigerator or tools for your work or a new laptop that you really needed to do your job. But now you're buy now, pay latering a burrito or Coachella tickets. So you go, you have the thing, and then you still have to pay more installments. I just think that like we have to have a real conversation with all of us as a society and say, when is enough? Because we are on this consumerism hamster wheel that is constantly going to tell you that if you don't have XYZ, you aren't special, you aren't important, you're not rich, and you will go broke trying to build a perception for yourself so that other people think that you're doing a lot better than you actually are.
So I saw that the other day. I saw an ad on Instagram, I think I screenshotted it, that was a buy now, pay later for dresses and outfits. Like, do you think that buy now, pay later now is a way that makes most people broke? Like most people should not use buy now, pay later?
I don't, because here's the thing. If you were to use a, buy now, pay later service, Klarna, Afterpay, whatever, and used it perfectly, you could come out unscathed. How many people do you trust to do anything perfectly? I mean, I can't even make microwave mac and cheese properly half the time. I mess up a step or something. I just feel like the risk is too large. The reward is not worth it. If you can't afford it on your own, then you can't afford it. You need to be saving up for it. You need to be budgeting for it. And for me, I think that what they don't tell you is that if you do miss a payment, the consequences are very severe. And there are decently high interest rates on those loans because that's what it is. It's a loan. It's not some fancy payment strategy. It's a loan. In the same way that you would go out and borrow money from a bank and miss a payment, you're going to have the same problem here.
It's so scary, isn't it? Like, it kind of makes me think about, I don't know if we all just complain too much, if it is reality, but do you think it is actually harder to be young in this generation than it was previously? Like, is it harder to be young and feel like you're rich in this generation than previous generations?
Of course. It is not in your head. It is not even, frankly, quote unquote, your fault. However, we have to understand the reality, but then also know what we can do to change it. So the reality is this. The cost of an education is sky high. Your parents could go to college, your grandparents go to college for $45 and a handshake. Now, a private 4-year education is multiple six figures. Homes have very literally 10x'd in cost over the past 100 years. Then you've got wage stagnation. That's awesome. The fact that our dollar just does not keep up with the rate of inflation. And just the fact that we have to recognize that we have so many more touch points of temptation, I'll call them, than our parents did. Because in your parents' generation, they had Keeping Up with the Joneses. They would look out their window with their little binoculars and be like, oh my gosh, the Joneses, they got a new station wagon. Or the Joneses, they got a new TV. Great. You can only see as close as your access gets you. You are actually basing your financial reality on someone who you have proximity to. Even if it's the richest person in your neighborhood, it's your neighborhood. But now, with the 2x4 screen in your hand, you literally have unfettered access to levels of wealth that have, frankly, never before been seen. I have no business knowing what the inside of Kim Kardashian's private plane looks like. I have no business knowing what island some royal is renting out for their luxurious wedding. But once you start seeing these things, that becomes an anchor. And you've probably heard of anchoring bias. It's essentially, when you're given a reference point, you immediately think that your answer to another question should be close to that number. So researchers asked a question. It was like, hey, how many countries are in Africa? And these are people who didn't know the answer, but they would essentially incept a number. And based on the number that they would tell these people ahead of asking them that question, their answer would be slightly closer to that number than, there was some sort of statistical significance there. And the problem is when you are anchoring your life against private jet money, against private island money, against vacation every single month money, you don't live in reality. And I think it's also fair to say that you don't need private island money to have a happy life. And that's the difference.
That's such a good point, because mimetic desire, the fact that I don't even know I want something until I see my rich BFF has it.
I'm going to tell you what you want.
Yeah, it is actually wild. And humans, apparently that is the only way that we know to want something or not. But I had never thought about temptation touch points before. And you're right. We are at a level where there is almost no way to escape them. We're here in New York City today. They're everywhere.
Can I tell you something really evil?
Yeah.
So I started my career on Wall Street, but the second part of my career that is talked about a lot less is that I worked at BuzzFeed. And I literally worked in digital media strategy sales. And that is a fancy way of saying I worked with companies to put ads online. So maybe they were custom pop-ups in Flatiron, like in real life, or maybe they were custom joint business ventures. But the lowest and simplest level of an advertising partnership is a standard banner. There are different sizes. You go to any sort of website, a news media site, you'll see a big old banner or a little banner at the top, depending on how their website's formulated. You'll see one on the right-hand side. You'll see one halfway through the article, whatever. And what they do is there are pixels. As you know, every single web page is made up of all of these little colored crystal pixels, so you can actually see stuff, read stuff. But if you go to, I'll just give an example, I don't know, a shoe website, and you're like, oh, I need this pair of heels, but I'm not going to buy them because it's out of budget. That website has put a very sticky pixel. Imagine it's like an Apple AirTag. They just popped it in your pocket. And then when you go and read an article on the Washington Post, or you go to a article on the Wall Street Journal, you're like, wow, these shoes, they're following me around the internet. It must be, a divine intervention. Like, I need to have these shoes. No, babes. I put that pixel on the internet to track you. Like, we are literally fighting against so many more forces than our parents had to. And it isn't our fault, but we do have to be smarter. And I think media literacy right now is such a big part of financial literacy, because if you don't think about why someone is incentivized to show you something, you won't know why they bothered to do it in the first place.
God, that's good. I you know what? I know about pixels, but I never think about the fact that, in sales, they famously say you have to have 12 touch points in order to get somebody to sell something. And that used to be hard to get 12 touch points. Now, I go to Nordstrom's, I like shoes, and I'm on 17 websites plus Zuck knows me better than my man.
Yeah.
He's got my Christmas list. So that's actually, it's a really good point, because I think a lot of times everybody's like willpower, discipline. But if the odds are stacked against you, that's pretty hard.
And did you know willpower is actually the only muscle that gets weaker the more you use it? You go to the gym, you do bicep curls, you do squats, I lift heavy. Every week, I can lift a little bit more. Every muscle gets a little bit stronger. The heavier I lift, the more often I do it. Willpower? No. The more times you tempt yourself, the worse your willpower is. That's why in the morning, you're like, yes, I will have a light breakfast. And then at night, you're elbow deep in a bucket of mac and cheese.
That's never happened to me ever. No, of course not.
No, certainly not. Never. Not to us.
No, I was laughing today. I was in a workout in the morning and with a girlfriend, and my team wanted to film some of it. And she was laughing because she's like, you're so much more serious right now in front of this camera. I didn't even realize it, but I guess I fuck around a lot when it's not there. But the point is, like, I don't even want to do the workout all the time. I don't want to be financially responsible all the time. So I guess you have all this inside information, from your time on Wall Street and JP Morgan and in advertising. Let's go back there for a second. Like, tell me what else. Like, what was one of the biggest lies that you found when you were at JP Morgan? Like, what lies are we told right now about finance that we don't even realize?
I will say one of the biggest lies is just that it's rude to talk about money. I cannot tell you the amount of money conversations I heard for the first time in my life sitting on that desk as a 22-year-old with literally negative $4. And it was crazy to me because we're positioned as, hey, if you talk about money, it's gauche. It's very tacky. You shouldn't be doing that. But I would sit there and listen to the traders compare what the private schools that they sent their kids to cost. And I would hear them compare, oh, which mortgage lender gave you a better rate? Pass me that guy's email. And then I would hear them say, hey, on the street, I was on the equities desk. When you trade a certain list of stocks, you are not personally allowed to invest in those companies. It's a conflict of interest, financial disclosures. We would literally have traders be like, man, if I was a betting man, I would put on this trade, but I can't because I work on this pad or like this list. People were literally giving each other ideas that they personally could not benefit from. They would constantly be talking about money. And that was the craziest thing. For people who are in the beginning of their financial journey, the hardest feeling is feeling like you don't have enough money. But once you get to that level, on Wall Street, what I learned is people have a harder time finding opportunities to actually deploy that capital. They're trying to give that money away faster than they can spend it. But you know what? It has to be a good opportunity. It has to earn them something back. It has to be worthwhile or additive for their life. But I really do think there's power in having that conversation.
The inside of the richest rooms, they talk about it all. I mean, when I was at Goldman in finance, they did what was called a club deal. Mm-hmm. And I never knew what a club deal was. And that just meant like, oh, I guess it came from the 19th hole, like the golf course. Yeah. So the clubs where all these dudes would go, they would sit and talk about deals. Hey, I'm going to invest in this real estate thing. You guys want to get in? That's where I learned the first term syndicate. Oh, that's when a group of us all get together. And I realized, oh, some of the best deals, they're never for the public. They're only behind closed doors.
That's that friends and family.
Right. And in the beginning, you can't even really have that matter to you because you're in survival mode. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really important to often know what's behind the closed doors that nobody even knows about.
I think it's important to eventually be in the room that it happens, but you have to know that room exists first. Yeah. And I had never seen it. Like I grew up very much middle class. My parents were both immigrants. I was the first generation kid. Like we didn't have these conversations at the dinner table. But what I noticed was those conversations were being led by the third generation trader. It's not even that he had money. His dad had money and grandpa had money too. And so it's almost woven into your DNA to be comfortable having these conversations when for the most of us, we're just not born into that.
Yeah. Do you have a philosophy on old money versus new money?
Absolutely. I think the difference is social capital. And I'll explain. So basically, when I was young, my parents were not consuming content. They were literally just working and trying to survive. And so when I would go to school on the Monday and people would be like, oh my God, the Ravens, they won this week. I'd be like, the Ravens, what is that? Like I didn't know what the football team was. Or they'd be like, yeah, like my favorite band, like the Beatles. I'd be like, the Beatles? Like, what is that? And it was always like, even as I got older, it was like, have you seen this movie? Like, no, I have not seen that movie. Sorry, my Chinese-speaking parents have not shown me the greatest 100 movies of, our time. Like, I did not have those unspoken things that made you cool. And I thought when I finally got to Wall Street, when I had gotten, that great education and gotten to this private zone, that I was finally in the club. I wasn't even on the same block as the club. And so unfortunately, I learned a lot more lingo there. So when guys would say, yeah, this weekend we're heading out east. East of where? That's code, by the way, for the Hamptons. Or it was something along the lines of, when we ski in Zermatt and we go to Gestad and there's Courchevel. Like I didn't even know how to spell these words, much less knew where they were. And there was this essentially club, unspoken, that you had to be a part of. Your dad had to have taken you to that ski resort, or your mom's family had to have had the house in Montauk. Like you were summering there. Summer is a verb, by the way. Never heard it before that.
Me neither.
And for me, I would say now I'm proudly new money, because when I think about all of these little touch points and this, if you know, you knows, it feels a little cheap. It feels like you're buying friendship, you're buying access. And what I love about being new money is that I'm tacky. Like, I don't want to stay at the bed and breakfast in, New Hampshire that Papa had a steak in. Like, I don't want to stay there. Like, I want to stay at the newest, nicest place with 1,000 thread count sheets. I want it because I can afford it. I want it not because it's tasteful, not because it's quiet, subtle. I want it because I can have it.
I love that. Very unapologetic. It makes a lot of sense why millions of people follow you on the internet, because I think it's also refreshing. There is this movement to try to be something that you're not. Like, you get money and then become something different. But I do think, to your point on rich people speaking differently, it's really hard to learn the inner workings of a culture if you don't speak the language. Yeah. So if you don't speak the language of the wealthy, well, then it's kind of hard to become wealthy. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like you have to learn these words, and not just the fancy summaring things, but you have to learn the words like we were talking about it before, 2 and 20, LP, GP, like all of these words in finance keep people away. And part of your mission to me that's so important is you seem to constantly, when I see your videos come up, you're like, let me explain what's actually happening here. And I'm going to take it from, MBA at Harvard down to the rest of us who never knew about this. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I'd be curious. You had one video I really liked, but even about how do rich people keep money in the family? Yeah. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, listen, rich people's idea of wealth is very us-based. And I'm talking truly wealthy people. It's like, this is an heirloom passed down from grandpa. This is how we're going to make sure that your kids' college is paid for. And learning that is part of the generational wealth. The generational wealth is not just money being passed down. It's me passing down knowledge that I have, that I maybe, if I was the generation to make the money, I had to break my back and learn things the hard way. I don't want that for you, because I want you to be better than me. I want you to be richer than me. And so I think the number one thing that rich people do that regular people don't is that they strategically, financially choreograph their life and how their money lives. So let me explain what that means. Basically, this financial choreography is how your money will move at certain points in your life. Maybe I have a desire to pass money down to my daughter, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to pass this down in a very specific way. You're going to get some money when you choose a school to attend. You're going to get some money when you decide to buy a home. You're going to only get any money if you make sure to sign a prenup. There are certain things that rich people are asking of their heirs so that their fortune is not spoiled, that regular people leave up to chance. And that's the problem. The people in your life, and frankly, you, are the liability. You are the person who has that lowered willpower. You are the person who might not make a smart decision one day just because you had a bad day or because you're tired. But when you choreograph, and I keep saying that, it's like a dance routine. When you choreograph your money in your life, you've taken all the thought out of it because you've waited for a sunny day when you were in the right state of mind to make smart decisions that you know will pay off in the long run.
This is a secret nobody shares. I've done thousands of deals, but until now, I've never shared the most valuable 10% publicly because I want to buy these businesses myself. Then I realized that if you guys buy the businesses, I get to do the deals with you. So this year at Main Street Millionaire Live, it is your chance to see our insider strategies. I'll teach you how we find, buy, and scale a business step by step with the frameworks that I literally use to buy all these businesses. So if you want to go from an aspiring owner to someone actually running a profitable business, join me. I'll give you my blueprint, then maybe we end up doing deals together.
Let's talk prenups. Do you think everybody should get a prenup?
Yes.
What are the details? Why and how would you set up a prenup?
Well, Cody, because if you don't get a prenup that you make yourself, you still get one, and the government gets to write it. And I don't care if you are left, right, center. I do not trust the government to know me and my partner as well as I do. Nobody should know me and my partner as well as me and my partner do. And so I feel like the nasty phrase thrown around prenups is like, oh, you don't trust me? Like, you think this is just we're going to get divorced? No. But like, you buy car insurance, don't you? You buy home insurance. You buy health insurance, you planning on getting into a crash, losing your home, or getting sick? No. This is just a security blanket. It is essentially insurance. And why it's so important to me is because it can be so tailored to your relationship. So I'll tell you what's in my prenup. My partner and I, when we first started dating, he made a lot more money than me. He covered all of our expenses. He was very generous. And ultimately, because he spent so much more of his money and I saved so much more of mine, when we bought our home, we didn't put in 50-50 amounts. But I wanted to make sure that we were still 50-50 on the house because I only had that money because he took care of me. And that's a loving thing to do. So everything going into our relationship that we have, 50-50. All assets, cash, everything, while we're married, 50-50. The only carve-out being the equity and ownership in my business, because if something were to happen, I would not want my ex-husband having any sort of ownership stake or say in how I run Your Rich BFF. And I think this is so powerful because the biggest thing a prenup can do is protect you. Think about if you are a stay-at-home parent. You are making a huge sacrifice in your personal career. You are doing endless unpaid labor that is so critically important to a family. Your family can't run if you don't do that work. But if you are not making a traditional income and you do not have some sort of protection in place, what happens in 10 years when maybe, say, you get cheated on? You're going to walk away with nothing. The only reason your partner was able to go out and work hard and earn that money is because you took care of everything at home. Whatever your prenup says, it should feel just. And I'm not saying equal, I'm saying fair. Because based on what you are bringing in and what you plan on contributing during the life of the marriage, you should have a clear way to divide that.
Yeah, I'm having dinner tonight with James Sexton. Do you know him? I'm obsessed
Divorce
with James.
lawyer.
Yeah,
Wow.
we've become buddies. He's close with my husband. They're both like jujitsu guys. But he says the same thing. And it's, once you've pierced the veil of finance, you realize the world of money. Once you pierce through the veil of divorce, same thing. I'm divorced previously and then happily remarried. But it was awful. I mean, it was awful. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever been through. And I lost a ton of money and time and pain and sorrow and whatever because we didn't actually do that. We did not have a prenup. And so I think there's always an exit tax to freedom, but it's such good advice that, again, is not very PC to share. And I'd be curious, let's go non-PC again. You and your husband both work.
Yeah.
I think it's very controversial these days. What should a woman do? What should a man do? I'm sure you get called a power couple too. I never know what to do with that term.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I think we're just both working, which is sort of normal. But what do you think should be the traditional relationship between man and woman in this world of making money and taking control of the house?
I think it's whatever works for you. And I hate to give a wishy-washy answer, but throughout the course of our relationship, things have changed. When we first started dating, I mentioned that he made a lot more money than me. And I had a lot more free time at the beginning because he was in investment banking. So he worked even longer hours than I did. That meant I picked up a little bit more slack at home. That's fine. But eventually we got to parity. That was probably year 5 of our relationship. And then when I started Your Rich BFF and it blew up, and now that I'm the breadwinner, there have been moments where I am busier than him, and I am so grateful to come home and he's like, oh, by the way, I've washed all of your yoga pants, so you don't have to keep wearing the same pair again. That's weird, Vivian. This is day 5. You need to pick a new pair. And so I think things can change throughout the course of your life. But if your partner is not willing to have that conversation, if there's just some default expectation that you will always be doing XYZ forever into perpetuity, it seems like you may not be in the right relationship. There's going to be moments, and there have been moments recently, even now that I'm the breadwinner, where my husband is just swamped. And I know he's swamped. So I make sure when he comes home, dinner is ready, whether I ordered it or I made it. But I need to take care of him. And he needs to take care of me, and we need to take care of ourselves individually for the other person too.
Yeah. Well, it's freeing because I think, these days, there's all these gender norms, but simultaneously now we're working too. And so, you know, for me, I'm like, with my husband, you know, we both work together in the business. So it's, you know, it's both of our businesses now, but Lord help me. If I was the one that was always responsible for having to do the cooking and cleaning, of which I'm completely inept, I'm pretty clean, but cooking, absolutely not. That's him. He goes out, he buys the groceries, he loves cooking. He's a total mini chef and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And he gives zero fucks. He's like, he's so masculine. He's like, I'm not emasculated by this. I don't care. But I think for a lot of people, these gender norms, you kind of get caged in them. And I've seen them happen to my girlfriends who work. And it always hurts my heart a little bit.
Can I also say something that's probably a little controversial?
Yes, please.
When you do something for free, a woman does it. When you get paid to do something, a man does it. So when you cook at home, you're the one who's expected to do it. The wife cleans, the wife cooks. Tell me why there are so many significantly more Michelin-starred male chefs than there are women. Why? Because suddenly it's your little passion project to make glazed pork belly and have an arm tattoo sleeve? Like, why? Why is that your career? Why does that get to be a thing that you are highly paid for, to have your restaurant group? But when mama does it at home, you should be doing that. That's unpaid labor. Lame.
Yeah, it's very weird. But, you know, I do think it's changing. Like one benefit, I think, I mean, I see people, business owners, men and women coming together every single day. I think the problem is you just can't be expected to do both. Like if I'm working all day, I'm not coming home and then doing all the housework too. That's unhinged.
Well, I think the safe thing to say is that if you want a traditional wife, then you have to be a traditional man. And you want to talk about a wife who cooks and cleans and has a hot meal on the table ready for, because back in the day, we could also all survive off of your one income, and we could still go on vacation twice a year. We had a white picket fence home, a golden retriever named Rover, and our 2 kids could still go to college, and you could pay for all that. If you can go to work and do all that for us, I'm happy. Happy to vacuum the house every day. I'm happy to cook dinner. I'm happy. But if you can't, and all of a sudden, I also got to work all day and come home, I also need a wife. Like, I too would like a wife who would do that for me. But you know what? If you are both making income, if you are both working, you gotta pick up slack together. And what we actually do in my house is we basically like only do the chores that we hate the least. So like my husband, his nightmare is going to a grocery store. I don't know if it's like overstimulating for him, but he's like, I forgot what we were supposed to get. I don't wanna be here. My nightmare is doing laundry. And it doesn't bother him. He's like, Viv, it's so easy. You just like throw it in and then you go. The machine does it for you. And I'm like, yes, but this is like now a 4-hour task. I'd rather go do something that's more immediately laborious for a shorter period of time. And so we divvy up our chores based on what we hate least.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. It's actually really good because normally I might just bitch at my husband about the thing that I want him to do.
Yeah.
Like I'm a countertop freak. I hate a bunch of stuff out.
We could never be married.
Really?
I am disgusting.
Oh my God. I think we always marry the person that triggers us the most.
Yes.
Like it's probably so I can learn patience and that doesn't matter. But I lose it. And so much so that my husband now has a saying he always says to me, he always goes, don't touch my stuff. And I'm like, because I'm like that OCD person behind the husband cleaning it up as he's trying to make a meal. It's unhinged. And so, but I like the idea, instead of me yelling at him all the time, I just need to take care of it. And so it's like this same thing. It's so good. Okay, what about, I want to talk a little bit about, you talked about things that you hate, and that's how you choose what to do. What if somebody hates budgeting? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you do if you're a person that hates budgeting, but you know you have to save?
It's a reframe. I think budgeting needs to get a new PR team, because budgeting, I feel like, is so looked down upon. It's like, budgeting is going to tell me no. Budgeting is the reason I can't do anything. No. Budgeting is the reason you can go out with your girlfriends for drinks and not worry when the bill comes that your card's going to be declined. Budgeting is the reason you can afford to go on that vacation and not be like, is this pina colada going to set me over the edge? Like, budgeting is the reason why you get to have the experiences you want out of your life. And so I think first we got to reframe. But second, if we're going to be practical here, I like a finger to the wind budgeting strategy, which is just the 50-30-20. So your take home pay, 50% of it goes towards needs. I'm talking housing, I'm talking utilities, transportation if you got to use it to get to and from work, basic groceries. 30% goes towards the wants. So this is dining out, entertainment, seeing friends, getting drinks, whatever. And then 20%, I always say, is taking care of future you. And that covers all things like saving, debt, pay down, investing, all those things. And the hope is that over time, this isn't going to stay 50, 30, 20 forever. The hope is that, as you make more money, as your investments start generating more income for you, the 50 and the 30 become a smaller proportionate amount of what you are having come in the door. And that 20 can actually become a larger and larger percentage of what your money is used towards.
So like back when you were paycheck living, like if somebody's listening right now and they're like, all right, I'm going to do this. Vivian seems smart. She was on Wall Street. I'm going to listen to her. What would that look like? Like, what did you do when you got a paycheck in order to start saving? What is the step-by-step that someone should do?
Yeah, there was no step-by-step, because if there was a step-by-step, it wasn't going to happen. So in New York City, I remember this too so vividly, because you get 2 paychecks a month. And I was living paycheck to paycheck my first year, working on Wall Street, which is so ridiculous because the rent was so high, my expenses were so high just because it was so expensive to live here. One of the paychecks, immediately I knew was going to rent, and then it was gone. But what I would do is in the portal, where it's like day one, they sit you down for orientation. They're like, hey, give us all of your information, your bank account, routing number so we can pay you, da-da-da. You give them your checking account. And then you never think about it again, but you can actually go and change that. So if you go into your workplace portal, you can change where your paycheck gets deposited. And what I ultimately had to do was automatically set aside 10% of my every single paycheck to go somewhere else. Yeah. Because when it was out of sight, it was out of mind. And then I was able to say, well, I only have this much left. This is how much I can spend. And so there was no temptation when I knew I didn't have the money. But all the while, my savings account is getting bigger and bigger. And at a certain point, I pivoted from even just saving to investing. And so I think taking all of the willpower, we talked about this, out of it. You don't want to build willpower. You can't. You want to build infrastructure, choreography. Because once you have those dance moves in place, there's no guesswork.
Yeah. It's funny because even in business, we teach the same thing. We have an idea that businesses should be profitable. I know it's shocking, but a lot of times we're business owners and we pay ourselves last, and then we allocate to new things and we're investing in our business, right? Well, most businesses never sell. Most businesses do not have an end date. They just close. So if you think about it that way, you're not paid along the journey at all, then that's really problematic. And so I have the same belief that in business, you should take the first 10% of every dollar that you make and you put that in your bank account, not in your business's bank account, in your bank account. And it's really painful for business owners to do because they're like, I'm going to run out of money. I have to spend all of this.
If you're going to run out of money, you might need to change some parts of your business.
100%. It's just financial discipline as opposed to willpower, which I think is a real differentiator. But let's actually talk about this. So you've got your cash allocation, your cash investment now. I never really knew how much money to keep on the sidelines. So like how much is too much cash to have sitting and how much should you have?
I think there's a number of different levers that I think about. So the first lever is typically what you as an individual, your demographic is. If you are single as a Pringle, you are just worried about yourself, you and your pet rock, 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a high yield savings account is usually appropriate. If you're a head of household, you got kids, maybe you're part of a family, 6 to 12 is probably a little bit safer. But now let's talk the levers. If you have a more traditional W-2 job, then you might be able to get away with the lower end of that range because it's probably easier to find replacement work. You're a freelancer? You're going to want a little bit more buffer. So that lever goes that way. But then it's like, finding a entry to mid-level job, there's dozens of them. But if you're more senior in your career, the job hunt might take 2 years before you find the right fit. So you might need to be on the higher end of that range if you are more senior in your career. And so there's all of these different levers, or maybe it's like, hey, one of your children has special needs. That payment to whatever service or whatever sort of private schooling or something cannot stop. You're going to want to be on the higher end of that range. You have to think about your life and where you fall. I like to do the 3 to 6 and 6 to 12 months as a jump off point, But then you need to pull all of your own levers and decide if you need to be on the lower end of that range, the higher end of that range, or maybe even bump above, or, where you need to live to feel safe. That money is not for today. That money, essentially what it buys you is time. If you no longer have money coming in the door, how long could you last with your current lifestyle? And that is what the emergency fund actually gets you.
Yeah, what's wild is how few people know that. I mean, we were playing a little game on the internet a couple of weeks ago where we were asking people, what is your hourly rate? Most people actually don't know that. And then what is your monthly expenses? More people know that substantially, but they don't actually realize what is the gap between what you make, what your monthly expenses are, and what your eventual, hey, I need to have 6 or 12 months.
Yeah.
And so this monetary gap is what kills you. And it sort of feels like the more successful, specialized, or skilled you are, the bigger amount of savings you have to have. So it's a really useful reframe. What another thing that I love about you is you're so framework oriented, which makes things easier to remember for people, and me included, because I'm very forgetful. So when you're thinking about personal finance and budgeting, are there other frameworks that you're like, why don't people know this? I need to tell them about it. And obviously they need to follow you for that too. But what other frameworks do you have about saving, investing, or making money that everybody needs to know?
I like to help people calculate their fuck you number.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is
what
super
does this
fun.
even mean? Okay, fun.
Okay, so if you're driving your car, don't do this. But if you are seated somewhere safe, close your eyes for a second and imagine your perfect year. You get to live where you live. You get to travel wherever you want to travel. Maybe you're helping out, kids. Maybe you have a pet that you want to have. You can have a shopping budget, all of those things. Now ask yourself, realistically, and don't lie, how much would that 1 year cost you? Then we take that number. You can whip out your handy dandy iPhone calculator. You divide that number by 0.04. That is representative of 4%. And the reason we use that is because 4% represents an incredibly conservative return on your investments. So this is what you can decently get right now from a high yield savings account, which is effectively risk-free. So we're pretty confident you can get this return. The number that you get, that you've now just calculated, is what you would want to have invested. And at that point, you could tell your boss, fuck you, and quit. Because your investments would be able to sponsor your lifestyle. And you could have that lifestyle into perpetuity, never eating into that nest egg. Because how much that nest egg would earn you every year would cover your expenses.
So hot. Also, it's a fun game.
It's such a fun game. Do it with your partner. We like to fantasize a little bit. And I'm like, okay, so if I'm living on a private island in Bora Bora, yeah, you can do that. It's fun. But also, it's realistic, because if you don't know what goal you're trying to go towards, you're just running into the horizon and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And I think it helps you not get so scared about money, because if you can move into the creativity zone, it's way harder to have the scarcity, the, lack zone. So I love that. Maybe that's a fun way to start out the new year.
Yeah.
Even just imagining it and feeling like, it was funny. My husband and I the other day were looking at some of the greats that we follow, like Napoleon, Alexander the Great, Marcus Aurelius, like old school guys. And he came up with an interesting assertion, which is that none of them actually ever hit their goals. Like they had crazy goals. I mean, Napoleon wanted to take over the world. Marcus Aurelius wanted to revive the Roman Empire, and they never actually hit them. But their goals were so big that where they fell was pretty cool.
Shoot for the moon, land among the stars.
Very true.
Yeah.
Napoleon, genocide and take over the world version.
Crazy.
Small little issue. Okay, I want to talk now about money and relationships in some ways. So let's say, for instance, that you're about to marry somebody. You're really considering it.
Yeah.
What money questions do you always ask somebody before you marry them?
Let's do a little Foursquare. These are the 4 things you need to know. You need to know what you make, what you have, what you owe, and what you spend. So this is going to talk about income. You should know what your partner makes. I think that's a pretty simple one. You should know what assets, the have, your partner has, debts, what you owe. You need to know all of those things. And then also just generally what you spend on, because I feel like that is such a representation of who you are as a person. And I think one of the great frustrations I have with finance and relationships is that nearly 50% of couples don't talk about money until they're engaged. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I did. I talked about all of it.
Yeah.
Did you talk about all of it?
I talked about finance with my husband, my now husband, 30 days into our relationship because I moved into a cockroach infested apartment and I basically needed him to bail me out of it and like let me live with him after knowing me for 30 days. But I had to be like straight up, this is how much money I have. This is how much money I make. I don't have any more money. I'm about to break this lease. It's going to cost me $8,000. It was all the savings I had at the time. Please help me. And it was so pathetic. I felt so like just weak, small, lonely. And he responded with such warmth and kindness and understanding. And he told me all of his numbers. And this is not to say that we are the perfect couple, but one thing we have never fought about is money.
Is there like a number where you think, Lord, if that's what their credit score is and that's how much debt they're in, don't do it? Is there like a breaking point?
I don't think that there is a breaking point, but it does make me wonder. Because my question for you is this. If you are a grown adult with a credit score that low or a debt number that high, why haven't you made a plan to fix that? Because if you don't have a plan to improve those things, maybe it doesn't bother you. Maybe you're okay living like that. I'm not. I want to make sure that we can eventually buy a home together, or we can eventually get a family car, or I'd like to go on vacation. God forbid. I want to relax one time ever. But like, if you are going to legally tie yourself to someone, especially knowing that there are places that are community property states, like you might have to assume somebody's debt if they take on a secret credit card while you guys are married. If you already have problems managing your overall financial health, that doesn't bode well for us. And it doesn't bode well for a lot of other things. In the same way that like if someone is willing to lie to you about secret credit card debt, they're probably going to lie to you about other things.
I mean, it's really hard conversations now, easy life later.
Exactly.
And so you can have the hard up front or you can have it later. And Lord, I wish somebody would have told me that in many ways.
That was ingrained in you, by the way, by Latina parents or Latino parents. Because my mom always told me, she was like, you can't have fun 2 days in a row. So it's like, you could either do your homework today or do your homework tomorrow. And you could go see your friend today or see your friend tomorrow, but you could never see your friend 2 days in a row.
That's amazing. Also such like an Asian mom thing. I feel like it's so good. I want to talk about like, okay, this is a little bit granular, but let's get granular. Beginning of the year. Let's say that your partner does make way more money than you do or way less. Do you split things 50-50 or how do you have that conversation with your partner about who pays for what?
Yeah, you can split it 50-50 if you want to break up. No, listen, I am someone who doesn't believe in things being equal. They have to be equitable. Because say we're dating and you make $250,000 a year and I make, I don't know, let's call it $80,000 a year. We go and get an apartment together and the rent is, $4,000 a month. That is a huge proportion of my income, right? $80,000 after taxes, you're probably looking at maybe $60,000 if we're lucky. $2,000 a month times 12, $24,000. $24,000 of $60,000 is what? A third? Over a third. $24,000 of $250. Let's say you walk away with $175. Oh, that's weird. That seems to be a much smaller fraction. No, we are not paying a commensurate amount on our rent. Because of that, I am shouldering a larger burden than you are, even though we are paying the same. And the problem with that is over time, that leads to a lot of resentment because you know what's going to happen? You're going to pay the rent and then you're going to go about your merry way. You're going to go to sushi dinner. You're going to be able to go on vacation. You're going to buy nice clothes. I only have $36,000 left that I'm working with. I'm not going out to sushi dinner. So then I'm going to tell you, hey, I don't want to go out to date night. You're going to think I'm a killjoy. I can't afford to go on vacation. So now you have to go by yourself and I'm just sitting at home like hating you via Instagram. Like I will build so much resentment towards you because you are living in a completely different universe than me. I think every couple should split things in an equitable fashion. That can be proportional, doesn't have to be. That can be, one partner just says, I'm going to cover it all because you make so much less than me that I want you to save and invest your money. A great example of this, Tyler Cameron actually told me that he was paying a lot of expenses and bought his girlfriend a new car because she got into a really scary car accident. And when he told me all of that, he like made a comment. He's like, yeah, that's probably not great financial advice. And I was like, well, actually, I think it is great. Because if you really think that you are going to have a deep relationship with this person, you want to take care of them and do right by them. And if you're making meaningfully more money and it's no problem to you, why not set your partner up for financial success so that when, hopefully things do progress down the line, you're both in a healthy financial state?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think this conversation will help if you're struggling with it. This is such a mathematical way to explain how to split things. And oftentimes we don't talk about it. Then if you do talk about it, you talk about it generally like, well, I feel like I can't pay for all of this. That's not a very useful way to have a conversation. If instead you could say, well, here's a way we could do it proportionally. Here's why I think it makes sense. It's kind of like a masterclass. So if I was struggling with how to do something with my partner, I would use your words.
And it's so crazy too, because when it's things that are not money, it's never this challenging. So like when my husband and I order a pizza, we do not split this pizza down the middle. I know for a fact that he is probably, 60 pounds heavier than me. He naturally is going to need more calories to feel full. He's taller than me, he's bigger than me. So yeah, if I give him an extra slice, I don't feel jilted, right? Like that's my allocation of pizza. Like you would never feel that way.
Nope.
But when it comes to dollars, all of a sudden people they get their pants in a bunch. Yeah. And I think if we think about money as care, people become a lot less sensitive to it.
Yeah. You also make money fun. Like the name of your new book is Well Endowed. And I LOL'd when you first gave me a copy of the book because, when money is either a game or mathematical or fun, it's just easier to talk about. There's some emotional burden that comes off of talking about money. So I want you to talk about it because I think this book is important for people. What is in Well Endowed? What are they going to get out of it? Why do people need to read it? Yeah.
So I think it'll make a lot of sense when I explain the title. Even though being well endowed is like a general crass joke that we make, if you actually look at the phrase well endowed, it is in reference to an endowment. And you've probably heard this word before. You've heard of Harvard's endowment, or maybe a big donor gave your favorite charity a pot of money to use, and now the charity has an endowment. What does an endowment actually mean, and what does it do? It is essentially resources and funds that allow an organization to further its mission into perpetuity for the rest of time and achieve their goals. That is exactly what I want to do with every individual person, because oftentimes I feel like our generation is spending money on shit that we don't actually want to impress people we don't actually like with money we don't have. And so you end up looking at yourself one day, you wake up one day and you're like, I hate my job. I don't have anything to show for all of those years of work. And my life really didn't pan out the way that I wanted it to. And so what this book teaches you to do is 1, understand consumerism. 2, navigate some of the biggest deals of your life, whether it's buying a home or a car or insurance, learning how to actually navigate finances with a partner, how to maybe set your kids up for financial success, get to your happily ever retirement, and then still be able to build an estate plan to leave something behind on this earth once you're gone, whether it's for Fluffy, your favorite pet dog, whether it's for your 2.5 kids, whether it's for your partner, whether it's for the rest of your family. I want you to feel like you got the most out of this life and we're still able to pass something on.
Oh, that's so good. I know what I'm going to do with my first $20 here, which is I'm going to spend it on this book. But let's say that somebody listening is like, they have $10K.
Yeah.
They have $10K to allocate. It is their, investment money or whatever. What do you think somebody should do besides buy the book with your first $10,000?
First and foremost, nearly half of the country has it. So what we're doing is we're paying off our high interest rate debt. And that is, my friends, credit cards. We are getting rid of that debt. The reason why credit cards can become so nefarious is because the APR on them is so high, usually somewhere between 20 to 30%, meaning that debt is compounding fast. So
APR meaning the interest rate.
Yes, APR being the interest rate every year. You want to make sure you wipe that because that debt can grow faster than the vast majority of investments that you can even make. Once you have that in a good spot, I want you to think about different time horizons. So maybe you want to have really long-term investments. Those are the ones for retirement. Perhaps it's something simple as putting your money into a target date retirement fund. All you have to do is calculate the year where you turn 65, round to the nearest year ending in 5 or 0, and then just picking, Vanguard, target date retirement fund, and then the year that you just calculated. Perhaps then you've got some shorter time goals. And maybe that's, I need to think about investing in a 529 because I want my son to be able to go to school and I'd like to help with that. Not only do you get a state tax benefit for you in 30 plus states, but also that money grows tax-free, can be used for educational expenses tax-free. If your kid ends up being some sort of football star and doesn't need the money, you can roll up to $35,000 of it into a Roth IRA for kiddo. And frankly, if you still have money left over, you can change the beneficiary of that account multiple times. You can become the beneficiary. Mama wants to take classes at the Culinary Institute. I'm going to go get my golf swing right at the Golf Academy. You do have to go somewhere that's accredited. It can't be like Uncle Tony's Golf Academy. It has to be like a legitimate place. But there's so many things that you can do, and it's a little bit of a near time horizon. And 3, I think look into creative ways to invest. We just had an incredible conversation about deal making, buying boring businesses, but also thinking about investing in your short term. So it's like, okay, well, I don't love my job. Like, what am I going to do to get a better one? Maybe it's I have to go get that sort of MBA if I'm in consulting and I need to move up that ladder because at a certain point, those 3 letters are going to make a difference in certain industries. Not all of them, but some of them. Maybe it's, man, I'd really like this specific skill set. Maybe I can find a place that can teach me how to do that, whether it's design, whether it's, understanding editing. It's all of these things. Invest in yourself for the short term because yes, I always say you can start with $5, you can start with $10. Investing is easy, yes. But the more money you have invested, the stronger it becomes. It's very literally a snowball rolling down a hill. And so at the beginning, it actually even makes more sense to invest in yourself so that you can have more money coming in the door. And when you have more dollars coming in the door, you have more money to put towards those longer term investments.
Do you believe in passive income? Do you think that's real?
I do, but I don't think it's as described on the internet. Like, objects in mirror are better than they appear. So, you hear people talk about you can just buy foreclosed home. Shut up. That is not passive. You are doing a lot of steps. You're doing a lot of work. You're probably going to have to do some sort of fixing on the house. That's not passive. You got to do stuff. Then there's you can just be an Amazon dropshipper. Do you know how much crap inventory is going to be at your house that you're going to be sending out, whatever? They're you can just drop it, ship it straight from the factory. And then you're you got to pay the factory. And then there's so many 1,000 things that are wrong. And it's also you can be an affiliate marketer. So do you understand that affiliate marketing only works if you already have a large audience? Volume. And so there's so many things that are positioned as passive income that I think are crummy ideas, not because they don't work, but because they're not passive. They are active income. You have a job, you're doing work. The only, I think, truly passive income strategy, is ownership. You have to own something, whether that be a business that is making you money, whether that be investments in the stock market, whether that be a bond that is paying you interest for having borrowed your money. You have to own something.
Yeah. It's so true. I got ridiculed on the internet once because I said, recently I've said there's no such thing as passive income, except it is actually a tax code. Like there is such a thing as passive income. But what I meant when I said it originally was exactly that passive income doesn't exist in that I put in no money, I put in no time, I have no skills, and I just make money because of this brilliant strategy that somebody came up with. No, but I do own a bunch of businesses that I don't work in at all. And so do I get income checks that I don't work for? Sure. But it takes a lot of upfront work to get that passive income. Although in the stock market, you put the money in and passive income can happen. That is a literal tax bracket. So I totally agree with you.
In the same way that you're yeah, I'm collecting these checks, but you're not collecting those checks because of something you did just now. You had to put a lot of work in over the years. And it's the same way that it's when you hire someone who can do it in 10 minutes, you're not paying for the 10 minutes, you're paying for the years of experience that allowed them to do it in 10 minutes.
That's so true. It's that Pablo Picasso story. Okay, what I want to end on is, so all of these are incredible tactics. I always wonder, why do you think we have such emotional ties to money? You have people, I've seen it on the streets when I've hung out with you and we're walking here, somebody will walk up my rich BFF, give you a big hug, you're my favorite. And I think you probably also have a lot of the opposite, which is this will never work for me. I'll never be rich. I have no money. What has been your experience? Why do we feel like money is so emotionally burdensome to us, or some of us might never be able to get it?
Because in our society, money is a marker of success. And the way people treat me, I feel oftentimes is a mirror of how they feel about their own abilities. And so when people are thank you so much for teaching me this thing, it's not that they're necessarily just happy that I exist. They are happy that they have derived value and now see a light. That they're I'm going to follow this light. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to become more successful. And they see me as almost inspiration, I think, in that if I do these things, I too can make this kind of money. And I genuinely believe that if you are implementing the tips that I'm giving out in Well Endowed on social media, I will take you from a place where you previously were to somewhere better. Am I guaranteeing you the sun, the moon, and the stars? Not for everyone, but I promise you're going to end it better than you started. On the flip side, when people are this will never work, they're super defeatist, they're just woe is me, I think that is a projection of them feeling they aren't deserving or that they've never seen an accurate representation of someone that looks like them succeed. If I'm honest, I think I probably had that mentality for a very long time. Prior to probably meeting my mentor at my first job at JP Morgan, she was the first rich Asian woman I had ever met. And I mean rich. New Chanel bag every day, click-clacked in on the marble floors with the Gucci stilettos. I thought that was wealth. And I've learned over time that she is incredibly wealthy for a lot of other things other than her fashion collection. But seeing her succeed was the first time I could envision myself in that lived reality. Because the only rich people I had met up until that point were all white guys. And I say that lovingly. My husband is a white guy. But it was very hard to picture me in it until I saw it myself.
So true. Actually, you know what? My first rich mentor that was a woman was an Asian woman, Yang Butler.
Really?
Total shout out. Yeah, Filipino. And same thing. I remember when she told me when she moved, I was at State Street at the time. She's when I moved from San Francisco to, Boston, she's it's really hard, a lot of stuff that I had to move. She's the toughest part was getting the semi-truck outfitted for the wine collection because it had, I remember thinking, bitch got a wine collection?
Yeah.
I thought it came in a box, I just didn't even, but I loved watching her live her version of a rich life. And she was the same. She had lovely bags. She was beautifully sort of dressed. And I think she went to Harvard or MIT. I can't remember which one. So she had all the trappings, but she was first gen. And I got to watch her and learn from her. And she was the very first one that talked to me about investing my own money and getting up on the balcony and sort of seeing things from up high as opposed to being in the mix.
And I'm willing to bet that she probably at some point was generous to you in a way that no one else in your life had been in the past.
Oh, yeah.
I went over to my mentor's apartment one weekend. She was cleaning out her closet. She had a pair of YSL heels with a gold toe, and they were black heels, gold toe, very classic, beautiful. And I don't know why she had never worn these shoes. I think they might have been just a smidge too big for her or whatever. They weren't the right size, but she forgot to return them. Forgot to return a pair of $800 shoes. And she gave them to me. And that was my first real designer thing. Yeah. This was before I could buy my own. Like, those shoes allowed me to close my eyes and imagine.
It's so, and I think, for the people who follow you and the people who are listening, I think there's always two buckets. The person who's listening that needs to implement all this in their life and that hungrily wants their first pair of YSL. But there's also probably the person listening that already has all of this. And it's like the impact you can have on one young Vivian or Codie or whoever by being rich and showing that it's not always a bad thing, by being giving when you have it and sharing not just the stuff, but the knowledge is so beautiful. So truly, I think your movement is so important. I love following you on the internet. I've already told you that. I'm so excited for this book. I haven't gotten to read this one yet because it's brand new, but I read your last book and I'm just so glad you're here. And if you don't already follow Vivian on the internet, my rich BFF on all the social channels.
Your rich BFF.
Oh, it's just mine.
Well, yeah.
It's mine, not yours. And then Net Worth and Chill podcast, which I was just on, really, really liked. You also have an incredible episode on there on private equity, which was near and dear to my heart. Yeah. So thank you for being here, Vivian. This is amazing.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. We are sitting on a generational wealth creation event. If you're here, this means you're a builder. As we're going through these next 3 days, I want you to know that the American dream starts with you guys by our little Main Street revolution.
And then I just want to give you guys permission to take a leap of faith.
If I knew then what I know now, I would probably do bigger deals.
It's given us an extra layer of security that we never would have had.
I am so excited to introduce you to some ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
We have to really take the time to make a meaningful connection. It's the fact that there is a lack of connection and the person just wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Thanks for taking the question.
Are there extra things that need to be done when trying to pay off bad debt?
Great question.
I buy businesses so simple, even your grandmother understands them. That's the game.
It's you and me versus the problem. We're going to try to solve this together.
I know how to build trust in a very advanced way.
How does buying a business fit into the vision for your life?
Today, my goal is to teach you some fundamental skills that you can use to accelerate your business.
If you make a promise in the mirror, know that your word is freaking iron to you.
These people on Wall Street, they want to keep the normal people out of the game.
Main Street millionaires are all around this world, and it starts with each and every one of you. What are you waiting for? Your path to ownership starts now. Get your ticket to join us on Main Street. Join us today.